Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of Rabbi Adam Kligfeld's weekly Rashi study class.
I've never welcomed anyone to any of my classes who is taking it from a train from New Orleans to Los Angeles. But we welcome Paul, who, I don't know, is taking the John Madden approach of crossing the country, and will be with us for Shabbat in Los Angeles. So we'll get to meet him for the first time. We're looking forward to seeing you, and how wonderful that you're taking this trip, and I hope you have nice vistas as you go through from the southeast to the southwest. Really wonderful to have you.
It's the Sunset Limited.
This is bittersweet. This is the penultimate Rashi class before I leave on sabbatical. I hadn't really had a chance to discuss with Leonard or all of you the plans on gone. I don't remember what we did 9 years ago.
Rabbi Lucas.
He did.
Yeah, different things, but yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I'll discuss that with my clergy team to see if anybody wants to step in, but we'll update you on the WhatsApp. I will miss this very much. I'm looking forward to the learning and the adventures and the growth I'm going to hopefully experience in the sabbatical, but this is a very precious hour of my week every week, so I will miss that. But with that in mind, let's get some work done here. Enough of this chatting around. We are very, very, very close to the end of the 12th chapter of Exodus, which is one of the longest chapters by verses in the Torah. That also means we're at the very end of the 6th Aliyah of Parshat Bo. I feel pretty confident that we will finish that Aliyah either this week or next week, so at the very least we'll have gotten to the 7th Aliyah. Okay, I have us having done verse 47 last week and the Rashis, which means we're going to start in verse 48. Well, as is our style, we'll read verse 47 again. It's a very short verse. Kol Adat Yisrael Yasu Oto. The entire congregation of Israel shall do it. The it being all the rituals of the Pesach. And Rashi had more words to say on the verse than the verse has words in and of itself. Yes, Barry.
Yes.
I just picked up another comment that the purpose of this is to include women. This is a time-bound obligation, but all the Israelites, women must also participate.
Yeah, women are indeed obligated to Korban Pesach. They're also obligated to the 4 cups of wine, one of the few exceptions to the traditional exemption of women's participation or obligation to time-bound positive mitzvot. Okay, let's go to verse 48. Elon, you want to read verse 48?
Don't have my reading glasses.
Okay, Joel, you had a hand on a microphone, so you want to read verse 48? I know.
Yes.
Risky to take the microphone in this class.
Yes.
וכי יגור איתך גר ועשה פסח לאדוני, אמו לו כל זכר ואז יקרב לעשותו, והיה כאזרח הארץ וכל ערל כי יאכל בו.
לא יאכל בו.
Yes.
לא יאכל בו. And if a stranger shall live amongst you and does the Pesach to God, you shall circumcise him, every male you shall.
What does Az mean?
Then you shall get close to him to do
then
it.
he will korev. He will do the korban.
Oh, okay.
And do it. I mean, it probably. It's interesting. We'll see how the translations. You can probably translate that yikrav as he will bring a sacrifice, or he will get close, meaning he will approach being able to do what he's supposed to do lasoto. But the word means to bring a sacrifice, but it means to bring a sacrifice because it means to draw close. Okay.
And he will be like all the other members of citizens of the country. Anybody who's not sacrificed will not eat of it.
Yes.
What is it?
sacrifice. It's close. Smaller knife. So if there's anyone who's
not eating it.
good. Okay. So
One, two.
first of all, we got a repeat of words whose meaning has changed a lot over the centuries, right? What does it mean to be a ger? It means something different in the Torah than what it means now. What it means to be Ezrach, in modern Hebrew Ezrach, it is a citizen. The Torah couldn't conceive of citizenship, but it clearly had to do with something about a resident who's living amongst and therefore has a more intimate relationship with the society. Okay?
Two.
What's the challenge of translating the first 9 words of this verse? V'chiagurita ger v'asa pesach l'Adonai. If I translate it straight, believing the tenses, if a stranger will live amongst you, v'asa pesach l'Adonai, and he does a pesach to God, he lo kol zachar, then you he must or you must circumcise for him every male. What's the problem with the tenses, Leonard?
Well, he has to be circumcised before he can do the sacrifice.
Right. It's very hard to translate the Asa Pesach Ladonai as he had done it, because the verse is describing what needs to happen in order for him to do it, right? We'll compare some translations, but my translation would be something like, if there dwells amongst you a stranger and desires to Asa Pesach Ladonai and wants to be included in that, this is the way it should happen. Everett Fox, I'll share that with the screen. So I thought I had it pulled up, but I didn't. This is verse 49, right? 48? Okay. I like his version too. Oh. Okay. I always sound weird to myself. Now, when a sojourner, it's on the screen, sojourns with you, he likes to turn ger into sojourn, and would make the Passover meal to God. So he turns the perfect verb, asa is a perfect verb, but he turns it almost into, what would that be? Pluperfect. No, not really pluperfect. It's more like conditional or conjunctive, right? Yes. And would make it, then every male with him must be circumcised, then he may come near. So Everett Fox translates the Yikra as to come near, to make it, to do it. And Everett Fox says this verb is often used in connection with the priestly cult, meaning with sacrifices, and will be regarded as a native of the land. He turns Ezrach into native. Yes. But any foreskinned man is not to eat of it. Okay. Any other interesting translations that you have of that verse, Leonard?
I was just going to say in my book over here, Ezrach is native. So I looked that up in the dictionary, and that is indeed the definition of Ezrach. So only later did it become citizen.
Right, because in the modern society, in some societies, native means citizenship. In some societies, it doesn't, right? So it got turned into a word that made more sense in more modern political establishments. Does are you did it interestingly at all?
I think so.
Give the microphone.
Here's the captain. When a proselyte joins you and wants to offer the Passover sacrifice to God,
wants to
offer, every male, parentheses, in his household must be circumcised, period. He may then join in the observance and be like a native-born Israelite, period. But no uncircumcised man may eat, parentheses, the sacrifice.
Right, so the way Aryeh Kaplan translates it reinforces that the common way of understanding this verse is not just to obligate the ger who wants to eat the Korban Pesach to circumcise himself, but thinking the ger as like a head of a household. That if he wants to him personally eat it, then he has to take it upon himself to make sure that every zachar in his household is circumcised. You can't have a half foreign, half native household and have the head of the household eat the korban. Larry?
Later on, I'm going to comment on that,
okay,
what you just said, because that's I think a really interesting interpretation. So here's what Alter says. And should a sojourner sojourn with you and make the Passover offering to the Lord, he must circumcise every male of his, Then may he draw near to it, and he shall be like a native in the land, but no uncircumcised man shall eat of it.
So in the English, he preserves the past tense, but he clearly means if a sojourner sojourns and would like to be someone who will have been able to say, yes, I made this Pesach
Yes.
sacrifice,
Okay.
this is how I have
Yes.
to do it. Exactly.
Yes.
Okay. Stevie.
If you skip ahead to Parshat Mishpatim on literally any given verse, like the constant pattern is v'chi something happening.
Yeah.
Here's the rules, and then v'im if there's some variation on that circumstance. So I think the v'chi is not like in English we translate as wants to, or like if the ger is to bring a sacrifice or something, here's how to do it. But it's not an awkward construction in Hebrew. This is just like in the circumstance of a ger bringing a sacrifice, here's how it goes.
I agree. I in the idiom of biblical Hebrew, this makes sense, and it's very hard to render into a single English sentence that both honors what the tense looks like in the verb, in the sentence, and makes sense to our English. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else on the verse itself? You were going to say something. You said there's something else you wanted to mention.
I have two comments on the verse.
Go ahead.
The first is the one that you mentioned, which, abstracting completely from the context here, what's going on, could seem to argue that you cannot become, if you're not Jewish, if you're not born a Jew, that you cannot individually choose to become a Jew without your entire family also becoming a Jew. But I don't know. I don't think anybody makes that. Does anybody suggest that you cannot become a convert if your family doesn't also convert with you? Is there any halakhic basis for that?
Yes. Yes.
I would say there's para-halachic basis to it, right? So the technical halachic obligation is on the person.
Ask me to try.
What's that?
You asked me to try to speak.
Can someone on Zoom try to speak?
Hello, how are you?
Okay, but it's too low. Thank you. So technically, if an individual person wants to convert, he or she's obligation is to be committed to God and to religious practice. But sociologically, it is confusing to figure out.
Yes.
Good, thank you, Hector. It is confusing to figure out whether or not you have, let's say you have a married couple comes to me, neither of them is Jewish. One of them wants to convert. The other one wants to maintain their separate faith. If they came to me already intermarried, I wouldn't reject the one who was born Jewish from the community at all, and I would welcome them with arms. But it's hard to make a decision to convert one member of a nuclear family when there's another faith that is operative in the family. And in the Orthodox world, they certainly wouldn't do it, right? Because they have a much higher standard in general for the actual Jewish observance pattern they require in order for conversion to happen. So that's a way of saying, yes, that is still operational on some level as we make these considerations.
The second comment goes back to the word yikrav, and Alter talks about the fact that yikrav, drawing near, and korban are basically the same root. And I wasn't here last week, and I'm not asking you to go back into it last week, but in the previous verse, the whole community of Israel shall offer it. It's pretty clear that there's a tension here between, not only in the text, but the way we practice, between the individual observance of Pesach in the household and originally smearing the blood on the doorpost and sacrificing in your household, the Korban Pesach, and the communal bringing a Korban to the temple where you're mixing, it's like our davening together, you're in a community. And it would seem to me that here, this is suggesting that the ger at least, but also the entire community, is not simply observing Pesach in their home. You are going to the temple and you're offering the sacrifice. This is clearly a communal activity. So the drawing near and the sacrifice is a communal thing rather than individual obligation.
So it seems to me that this verse, that the notion of someone who wants to offer the Pesach is a stand-in for someone who actually wants to join the community. If we think about the Israelites who have left and then the masses that left with them, this is a suggestion that in order for them to actually join with this community, they have to circumcise their males and take part in the rituals, and that's it.
Yeah, a clear and unforgiving and lenient standard. Yeah. So apparently, Hector, we can hear them better, but all of a sudden they can't hear me well on this microphone. So, or they can't hear me as well. So I don't know what's going on. Rachel, your hand was up, and then Leonard.
In the absence of Rick, I want to ask for a trope drash on the word Pesach, because in my reading, it's unusual to have the same trope twice on a single word.
Where do you see the same trope twice? Oh, okay. It's a pronunciation. So there are certain tropes that only appear at a particular part of the word. And this is called a zarka. It always appears on the end of the word because it almost always appears on a word who's stressed on the end of the word. But when a zarka, can also happen to a pashta, appears on a word where the last syllable is not the syllable that's stressed, it appears twice to tell you, yeah, I'm a zarka, and I'm at the end of the word because that's where zarka is, but this word is stressed on the word peh, not sach, right? And you're right that it's not very common, but it's not completely uncommon either. Yeah. And with a pashta, it happens because a pashta and a kadma look exactly the same. A pashta, what difference between a pashta and a kadma, because they sound different, is that a pashta is always on or at the end of the last letter of the word. Because most words that have the pashta note are stressed on the last syllable. But occasionally, you have a word that has the note pashta, but an earlier syllable is stressed, and so a second one appears to tell you, stress this syllable, but I'm not a kadma, I'm a pashta. Yeah. That's less of a concern with zarka because there isn't anything else that looks like a zarka. So I don't know why it was established that it didn't just move the zarka earlier, but I guess it got established that a zarka, its home is at the end of a word, so if it's not stressed there, move it earlier. Yeah.
So earlier you read this with the plain meaning of the text, but I think we got it wrong.
Okay.
I think if you read this, you could translate this as, if there lives among you a stranger and he will do the Pesach to God, then he and his males need to be circumcised. So in other words, if you translate it that way, there's no problem with the tenses. Yeah, it's Vav.
What would come first, the sacrifice or the circumcision?
It says if he's going to be doing the sacrifice, he needs to be circumcised. So the circumcision comes first, which is what we read in the second half of the verse, which I don't think contradicts what it says in the first half.
I don't think I understood your point yet.
He's saying the ba'asa was ba'ad ha'hipuch, so it's future.
I can't put words to why I don't think that's true. I have like an instinct as to when a vav is a vav ha'hipuch, and I do not have the vocabulary to explain why its placement in the verse suggests more like a subjunctive than a vav ha'hipuch. But you could be right. But my instinct is it's not vav ha'hipuch, but I can't really tell you why. I wish Dr. Avram Holtz of blessed memory was in the room. He could maybe answer it better. You answering that, Stevie?
Yeah, just
Diane.
It's part of the circumstance that we're in, right?
Yeah.
It's still like the circumstance that we're in is there's a stranger and he wants to sacrifice, right? And he's going to sacrifice. So
the vav ha'hipuch is connecting idea A to idea B. And in that connective thread, for some reason, the structure of the verb got switched. But Stevie said it well. It usually doesn't appear in the middle of a phrase, but rather the beginning of the next phrase.
So this is a translation problem, and it shows up when you listen to Israelis speak. There is no conditional in Hebrew, right? So it can't be if he would offer it, and the way that's constructed in Hebrew is with future.
Yeah.
Right? So, and you hear it all the time when you listen to Israelis speak. They just throw the future in.
Correct.
When what they mean is the conditional, because they don't think about it that way.
Right, but here, I mean, Leonard's trying to make the argument that this is a future verb that looks like a past tense verb because of vavai puch. I don't think it's a future verb. I think it's a weird use of a perfect verb that's not future, that's actually past, which makes it even harder to translate. Or he's right and I'm wrong.
Yeah, but you said before it's conditional, right?
Right.
So,
but it's not conditional using a future verb. I think it's conditional using a past verb, which is weirder. In modern Hebrew, they would use a future verb for conditional. This is using a past tense verb for it somehow. Anyway, let's not get too in that weed. Let's go to the Rashi and see what he says. He's not nearly as concerned with the grammar, the syntax I am. Joel, you were reading, right?
Vasa Pesach?
Yeah.
Yachol kol hamitgayer ya'aseh Pesach miyad.
What does Yachol mean in Midrashic language?
So it could be read, it could be
right, but it's always going to be rejected. Could it possibly be that? There's a no coming, even if the no isn't explicit. Yachol means can it be? No, it can't be. Okay, can it be that?
That the proselyte will do it immediately. Talmud lomar. So therefore, the text says, "V'haya ke'ezrach haaretz." He will do it as the native does it. Mazrach be'arba'asar, just as the native does it on the 14th. Afger be'arba'asar. So shall the convert do it on the 14th.
Thinks they understand Rashi's rhetorical question that he answers in the negative. What does he think we might have thought, such that the verse has to tell us it's not that?
That is.
Go ahead. Oh, Joe, if you have the mic, I'll stay it. Yeah.
That as soon as he gets circumcised, he can immediately eat it.
Never that. Right. The question Rashi is answering in the negative is, unless you thought that the verse should be read, that whenever the conversion happens, even if it's July 9th, the next thing he should do is a Korban Pesach because he's entered into the covenant. And just like we did a Korban Pesach when we kind of began our covenant with God in the way of out of Egypt, therefore that should be our first act. Like, unless you thought that I should convene a Beit Din, do the Hatafat Amrid, go to the mikveh, the AJU, and then do a Pesach Seder for every convert. No, the verse tells us by the end of the verse, the Hayak Ezrat Haaretz is giving us a reason for why that last phrase should exist. Once that happens, it's actually a really nice thought. He or she is just like any other Israelite, Jew, or Hebrew. Their rules are the same. The next time Pesach comes around, do it. It's not an immediate obligation or even immediate permission. Barry, you going to say something?
Yeah, it's going to be done. If the conversion was done this day, immediately after the conversion on the same day, is one able to do the Korban Pesach?
Say that again?
If one's circumcision was done on this day, immediately after doing this day the circumcision, can one on this same day do the Korban Pesach? Or is there a time interval that has to occur?
I mean, I would say that the answer to that question is yes. It's a different question than Rashi's asking. Rashi's asking if the circumcision had been a month before, should he or she do this Korban right at that point? And the answer would be no. But yes, I suppose if you convert Erev Pesach, have at it with your Korban Pesach. Tova, put your hand up.
Sort of. It just made me focus on that the way the verse is written seems to suggest that because the Pesach is coming and this ger who has been dwelling in the land is inclined to, would like to, therefore do the brit so he can. So it's not necessarily contradicting what Rashi's saying, but that's now how I'm hearing the verse, that's what's bringing it on, his desire at that time to take part in it.
Right, and that the desire should not be acted on if it's not the appropriate day for any other Jew to have done it. Stevie?
just going to point out that this is like the verse that the rabbis use to talk about conversion, right? Like this is the verse.
Right.
So if this is the verse that you're getting the whole concept of conversion from, then it's not crazy to think that, oh, like the steps to conversion include a Korban Pesach, right? Like it's, right, we're, you know.
Or that the immediate act upon converting is Korban Pesach? And the answer is, no, it isn't, even though the verse could be read that way. Exactly. Rebecca?
Could it be that it's sort of a little bit the other way around, that if you have someone living with you that's not Jewish and they join you for the Seder and they like it and they want to join, then they should get circumcised and do what they have to do so that they can join you as a real participant in the next years. So to actually take it in that order.
Are you asking if that's what the verse could have meant? Oh, you muted yourself and halfway through that answer.
Sorry.
Okay.
I said, as I reread it after Rashi and listening to what other people say, it might be that is the kind of order of things.
It's delightful to imagine the verse could have meant that, even though it probably didn't, right? It's delightful to take the tenses seriously. Let's say there's a stranger with you. He gets invited to your sacrifice. He does Pesach with you. Let him finish off the process and continue the conversion because he's so inspired by your wonderful Seder. Yeah, I don't think that's pshat, but maybe it's a nice way of reading it to encourage people to bring non-residents to your Seder, because maybe you could end up with a snip. Yeah. Okay, we have one more Rashi on this verse. Joel, you're still on.
V'chol arar lo ya'achal bo, and anybody who's not circumcised will not eat of it. Lahavi et shamat.
Shemetu.
Oh, shemetu echav michamat milah.
Okay, lahavi in Midrashic Hebrew,
to bring along.
It means to include in a category. And here it's including in a category that's an exclusionary category. So to include in the exclusion from consuming the Korban Pesach, which people?
Somebody whose brother died from the circumcision.
Right. So fill in the thought. If your parents, and God forbid your first child died in circumcision, right? What might you not want to do on your second child? Right. Which means that if you make that decision, even though you're born to a Jewish mother, that second child is Jewish according to rabbinic law, but what is he also?
Not circumcised.
He's an Arel, right? And so this verse does not say anyone who's not Jewish can't eat of it. It says anyone who is uncircumcised cannot eat of it. And Rashi here is doing what he rarely does, which is kind of weighing in halachically, including a Jew born to a Jew who for some reason is not circumcised, even if the reason he's not circumcised is because of concern for danger. This, by the way, has halachic implications in the modern world, less for eating Korban Pesach, because we don't have that regulation for Pesach, but we do have that regulation for conversion. Can you convert a hemophiliac? Can you convert a male who cannot have blood drawn for real fear of danger to the life? It's not a fully resolved question. You would think it would be an easy answer. We put a lot of weight to these mystical rites in our tradition, and it's not an easy answer to figure out how to convert a male who cannot undergo a circumcision. Right? So we don't have it be vis-a-vis the Pesach, but we do have it vis-a-vis becoming, as Steve says, the other category in the previous verse, which is one of us. Let Joel finish and then the hands. So Rashi now can explain why you might need this verse to teach you this law. She'eno
mumar la'arlot ve'eno lomed miben nachar lo yachal bo.
Okay, so he's basically saying such a person, the person who's not circumcised because his parents were afraid to endanger his life by circumcising, is excluded from eating the Pesach, but he's not excluded for two other categories that you might have thought. He's not excluded for being mumar la'arilut. Anyone know what a mumar la'arilut is? Mumar is an apostate. Arilut is a foreskin. So someone who
undid the circumcision
or refused to for religious reasons, right? There, you can imagine several. It happens, by the way, in Jewish practice today. You can imagine several reasons why someone would not circumcise their son. One might be, I'm a fully observant Jew. I'm afraid for my son's life because of the blood. One might be, I think this is a ridiculous law. There are more and more Jews every year who do not circumcise their sons. They are mumar la'arilut. So someone who's mumar la'arilut certainly can't eat the korban pesach. But that's not this guy. This guy is for a different reason. Nor is this guy what? Ben Nechar? What's Ben Nechar? Son of a foreigner, right? The reason why this person is excluded from Korban Pesach is not because he's not one of us. He is one of us, but he's not circumcised. So Rashi says we had to have this phrase, but you can read it both ways. Either we had to have this phrase, Kol Arel Lo Yochal Bo, to exclude this particular rare category of the person born to a Jewish mother who's not an apostate but is still uncircumcised, or reverse it. We learn that rule and we learn that exclusion from this phrase in the text. You were going to say something there, weren't you?
Maybe.
By the time the microphone gets to you, you'll have said something.
No, I hesitate to open up the subject, but it seems to me that the mumar la'arilut might be one of the phrase that you would consider when you're talking about trans men and whether they can become Jewish.
Just define your terms so I understand what you mean. Trans
A
men.
woman who a biological woman wants to become a man, can they have a circumcision? That's a separate. That's a question already. But here, if they can't, what do you do in those circumstances? My guess is it's already starting to be discussed.
Yeah. Sure. So you're talking about someone who was born a biological woman who has transitioned to being a male and then maybe has gone through the surgery and now wants to convert. Does halakha consider that person to be a biological woman who does not require circumcision, or a male who does require circumcision, but from where? Yeah. Would you look at the time? My sabbatical is starting right now. How did it become February 17th so quickly?
And transitions, can she fulfill obligations as a Jewish male now?
Right. Well, that certainly is being discussed, right? I mean, think of it. It's that particular question is less of a question in our community where we understand the obligations and the rights to be the same. But go to B'nai David, right? Like a modern Orthodox, progressive Orthodox community that still has very significant differences in gender access to the bima. I actually haven't discussed with Rav Yosef in a while what they consider, how they consider either transition, right? Someone who was born a woman who's become a male, is that person now able to lead davening? And vice versa. Someone who was born a male, become a woman, can that person still lead davening? That is a question in modern Orthodox. I don't know how they've resolved it. Leonard.
So Steinsaltz, does a translation, but he interpolates a lot of extra words. You want to hear what he has to say? He throws in some things we hadn't discussed here.
Sure.
So he translates this verse with his interpolations here. When a stranger resides... Okay, let's try this again. When a stranger resides with you, not a temporary resident nor a hired hand, but someone who wishes to convert and join the nation of Israel and worship God, and he performs the Paschal offering to the Lord, before he may do so, one must circumcise every male of his. One of the necessary conditions of conversion is that all the male members of the household who wish to convert must enter into the covenant of circumcision. And then he shall approach to perform it, to offer the paschal lamb, and he shall be like a native of the land, but all uncircumcised persons shall not eat from it, including one who was born an Israelite but is not circumcised.
Before you discuss it, I put it on the screen so you could see that what Leonard was reading, the words in bold that he was reading is Steinsaltz's translation, and the words that are not bold are his interpolation. So tell me what spoke to you about that.
Well, there's two things over here. Number one is that it doesn't sound like every male has to be circumcised. It's just everyone who wants to convert. That's number one. And number two is what we discussed a little bit, is that if an Israelite has not been circumcised, he's not permitted to eat it.
Correct. So that last part is what Rashi said. Whether the reason to not circumcise is because he was an apostate, or because he hadn't yet completed the conversion process, or because his parents were afraid to circumcise him, it excommunicates him from this particular rule. It does not seem to suggest, this verse in biblical context does not seem to suggest that person cannot become an Ezrach, cannot become whatever they consider a convert, but cannot eat Korban Pesach. Yeah, Diane, and then Barry.
So this is a question. There's the phrase Ezrach ha'aretz. This is going on in Egypt. There is no Aretz yet, or Ezrachut, at least in the way we think of Ezrachut. And so I'm curious about why this phrase and not, what we really mean is a belonger to the tribe, right? And there's no land. So it's curious.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. What's the Aretz being referred to? We have discussed for the last few weeks that there seems to be a weaving, a melding of when this scene is happening. Are we still in Egypt? Are we out of Egypt? Is it talking about that night? Is it talking about all nights? There are definitely some editorial questions. So, you could hazard the guess that some of this material is material that got created when there's already Ezrach Ha'aretz that get puts back in. But if you take the holistic, given at Sinai version of the text, it's a better question as to what the Aretz is of Ezrach Ha'aretz. Yeah. Barry, go ahead.
Just responding to that, there is the promise to Abraham that this is the land that I'll give to you and your seed. And so that promise is there. So you could argue that when we have not yet taken the land, but it is promised, we are connected to it already.
Citizen of that land to which we're headed.
Yeah.
Yes, Barry?
So I did some research on the question of the trans person.
In the last 30 seconds you did? Or just before?
20 seconds.
Okay.
A biological woman that's surgically trans does not have a biological foreskin, and the circumcision is not considered.
Right. It's an unfinished question in religious Jewish practice, but that's one of the considerations as to what is a foreskin, right? And it's something obviously the Torah could not possibly have anticipated, nor could the rabbis. Okay. That's verse 48. Let's go to verse 49, which is the second to the last verse of the chapter. Sue Chatzron, you want to read?
Sure. Vayu. Wait, where? Verse 49?
Yeah, Torah Chat.
Torah Achat yeh le'ezrach v'lager hagar b'tochechem. Okay, there will be one Torah for the citizen, and for the stranger, hagar b'tochechem. There and for the stranger that lives with you.
Good. What does the word Torah mean in Torah? Law, rule. Right? The Torah is not referring to itself as the name of the book, right? It's saying that there should be one
body of laws.
One body of laws governing the Ezrach and the Ger Hagar B'Tochechem. Now, what's interesting about just the construction is we still don't know exactly how to understand the word Ezrach here. Is the Ezrach in this verse referring to us or is referring to a ger who started out as a ger and, like in the previous verse, became an Ezrach Haaretz through conversion? Is this verse, our verse, comparing the one who joins us from outside versus the one who was already amongst us? Or is it comparing the one who took the steps to become an Ezrach, but started out as a ger, and compared with the one who is still a ger? There are different opinions as to which of those two things it is. Larry, and then Stevie.
I don't have an answer to my question at all, but the Masoretes obviously understood this differently.
Okay.
Because I'm going to read this verse the way in which it's punctuated by the trope.
Okay.
There is one law for the citizen, and the foreigner who lives amongst you, I don't know. But that etnachta is telling me that there's a separation between the two parts. If I were punctuating it, and I had the meaning that most people take from this phrase, I would have said, well, I can't have an etnachta in this verse if it's going to be a verse, or else somebody edited out some words at the end of this verse, and we don't see it.
Right. Or you could have done Torah achat yihiyeh la'azrach v'lager hagar v'dochachem. Right.
That would convey the meaning that we all give to this verse.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of disturbing to me the way it's laying.
Stevie?
I don't really understand your question, because the previous pasuk said Vaya ke'ezrach, right? So the ger will be like an Ezrach. So I don't see how you could use the word Ezrach to describe that person in contradistinction to some other ger or some other non-Israelite, right? It seems like this is sort of, saying that ger that we were talking about, that's ke'ezrach, has the same Torah as Ezra.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Fair pushback to my question. The Hayak Ezrach Haaretz could also mean will be like, but not actually be the Ezrach, or in the process of doing what this verse says he or she is doing is sort of becoming Ezrach Haaretz, right? Okay, so anything else on the verse itself? Okay, let's look at the Rashi. Before we look at the Rashi, this topic is still very much alive in the Jewish world, and where the topic is more alive is problematic. Meaning, when this topic is alive, it bespeaks a problem. It bespeaks an unwillingness of some communities and some individual members of a community to consider what? A convert to be a full Jew with no asterisks, right? The Torah didn't think of conversion the way we do, but it seems to be laying out the notion that whether one's entree to be an Ezrach is through birth or through choice, once you pass a certain threshold, Torah achat. Now, that pushes the more stringent communities to be more stringent on the criteria for conversion. You can't be a member of our Frum community on Pico if you're a born Jew, if you're not from. So we're actually not going to convert you to become one of us unless you're really from. Like, I get that, Torah achat. But it also suggests a certain attitude and a stance that we should be having towards all people who choose Judaism, which is Torah achat, one concept weaving us together. The Talmud, in another place, names as one of the sins of Oshek. Oshek is, or Hona'at Dvarim, which is demeaning someone with words. One of the examples of it is taunting a convert, saying, that mouth of yours that you used to eat treif, right? Reminding the person where they came from. That's considered a sin. The Jew is sinning by taunting the non-Jew to have to remember his or her pre-Jewish past. And it stems a little bit from this verse, Torah achat. Let's see what Rashi says on it. Sue?
Okay. But saying that as Torah achat solves the problem, I think, by the way, of all of this, slicing and dicing. It's sort of like it's one. It's all one. Yeah. Applies to everybody. Okay, where to go? Torah achat, v'gomer. להשוות גר לאזרח, אף לשאר מצוות שבתורה.
Once Sue translates and we understand what Rashi is saying, your response to Rashi, your head might be, duh, of course. So we have to figure out what actually was bothering Rashi, because the first read of Rashi suggests that he's saying something that we would have considered obvious. Go ahead.
To compare the ger, the converted Jew, to a native Jew, אף לשאר מצוות. It includes all the other mitzvot in the Torah.
Right. So Rashi is saying this verse, this last, second to last verse of the chapter, is to make sure we understand that the chosen Jew's obligation and status is like the born Jew, even to all other laws. To which might say, well, as opposed to what?
Just this one.
Just this one.
So this thing.
Lest you read the previous verses to say that the only way in which a ger who becomes like an ezrach is similar to us as Korban Pesach. No, it's everything. As Stevie said, these are the core verses to describe the process by which someone goes from outside to inside, and once they're inside, they are comprehensively inside. Since the context of these verses is Korban Pesach, you might have thought, you might not have thought, but someone could raise the argument, maybe this is the only context in which someone joins the Jewish people and becomes equally obligated. No, it's also true for all the mitzvot, which we consider obvious because that's the world in which we live in. If there are any comments or healing, then I want to show you one super commentary on this Rashi, which fleshes it out a bit. Anyone else want to say something on that verse? Leonard.
Microphone, please. We had the translation of lahashvot as to compare, but it actually means to make equal,
right?
Which is different than to compare and contrast. It says these guys are the same,
right? I think Sue is using the word compare to mean to make equal, to make a comparison and to essentially say that they have the same rule. Yeah, that's clearly what Rashi means by that.
Lahashvot is to weigh them.
To make them shaveh.
Balance them, right, to make them right.
Right. In modern Hebrew, you can compare things that are not equal and determine by the comparison they're not. Here it's being used to make them shaveh. Yeah.
Is it possible to reverse the causality or the intentionality here? What we're doing up to now is saying, well, if you want to participate in the Pesach, you have to be circumcised, and then you are a full-fledged Jew. And then we're understanding this verse to mean in everything, in all the mitzvot. What if we turn around and say, maybe what Rashi meant was, just as to become a Jew in order to participate in the Korban Pesach, to participate in any of the mitzvot, you must become a Jew through circumcision.
Yeah, I think that's not the specific point Rashi is saying, but I think the implication for what it's saying is that the comparison works both directions. Once you convert, you're legally obligated, and to be considered a fully part of anything, not just Korban Pesach, you have to go through this process. Joel?
You can observe Shabbat without being a Jew. This is one of the few. What?
It's a death penalty.
Yeah. This is one of the few mitzvot that you have to be a Jew in order to observe.
Well, as Stevie half jokingly, half seriously said, Jewish law considers it prohibited for a non-Jew to observe Shabbat. Right? There's a great joke. I won't be able to produce it, but it's the punchline rests on. Forget it. I'll try to remember by next week, because there's a great joke that hinges on the weird notion that a frum Jew considers it prohibited for a non-Jew to observe Shabbat, and it's a conversation between. I don't know. I'm ruining it by ruining it. I don't. Eruv.
In a minion.
Yes.
It's like, why? So maybe the guy where says, no, he says, I'm always carrying this handkerchief in my pocket, even on Shabbos. He says, but we're within here. I don't hold by that.
Right. That's the joke, and it's wonderful. Thank you. Okay. I want to show you the commentary of the Siftei Chachamim. Normally when Rebecca, your hand is up. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just sort of answering your question from before reading the Rashi. Why he might be saying this is that it could be that there is a practice where you have someone living with you as help, and in order for them to participate, you circumcise them, but then you'll use them as a goy of Shabbat too, or a goy of Pesach. And so it might be the point is once they're in, they sit at the table.
That's great. Great. I sometimes find it helpful to have a Jewish Shabbos goy in your family who doesn't care. That's really helpful. Helpful during the playoffs. But okay.
Celebrates one day.
Or doesn't hold by that Eruv. Okay. I'm going to share. Did I share it yet? No. Okay. The Siftei Chachamim. Normally, when we look at the super commentaries on Rashi, I've shown you the Gur Aryeh, which is the commentary by the Maharal of Prague. This is another commentary that does to Rashi kind of what Rashi does to the verse. Okay, so Rashi said, "Af l'shar mitzvot shebetorah." V'im tumar, and if you ask the same question I suggest you would ask, mehechi teiti lechalek, why would you have thought we would have made a distinction between someone who chose Judaism and his or her obligations to Korban Pesach and all the other mitzvot? Why would it have to include this? V'hager Yisrael gamurhu. After all, he's saying, someone who's converted to Judaism is completely Jewish, which is wonderful that they're saying that. Bishlama le'el, it sort of makes sense vis-a-vis the previous verse, but Pasuk HaKodem, dichtiv ke'ezrach ha'aretz, that it says, shall be like the citizen of the land. Lahashvot et hager le'ezrach ha'aretz b'hakravat pesach b'yud dalet. That you might have thought that the previous verse that was comparing the one who chooses Judaism to the citizen, that says that just as the Ezrach is obligated to do on the 14th day, so is the Ger, meaning, remember we said before, the Ger doesn't have to do and shouldn't do Korban Pesach the day he converts. The Hava Amina, that I would have thought, Miyad Shenit Gayer, the moment that he or she converts, Haya Chayav Korban Pesach. Meaning, if you thought that the previous verse might have been telling you that there is a distinction between the two, it was just showing you that someone who converts to Judaism in the biblical sense does not do the Korban Pesach, but rather just like every other Israelite does on the right day. Mishum hachi kativ kezrach haaretz. That's the reason why the phrase kezrach haaretz existed. Kedeperish Rashi leil, as we learn from Rashi there. Aval sha'ar mitzvot shebetorah minan alan lechalek. Why would we have ever thought there would be a distinction between us and Jews by choice regarding every other mitzvah? His answer, V'yesh lomar, you might have said, he's not saying he said that, but he's saying you might have thought, Mid'itzterich kra, since the verse had to, lahashvot hager l'Yisrael, to compare, meaning to equalize the ger and Israel, linyan hakarbat pesach b'yodalid, with regarding the issue of bringing the Pesach sacrifice to the 14th, Havamina, I might have thought that was a very, very, very narrow comparison and not a wide comparison. Havamina, I would have said, She'ein Hager Shaveh LeYisrael, that a non-Jew is not similar to Israel, because remember, as Stevie said before, in the Torah, this is where the concept is introduced. B'sha'ar mitzvot. I would have thought that there is no comparison between the Jew and the non-Jew in other mitzvot. The Torah, he's saying that Rashi's saying that the Torah is saying they are equal, which is obvious to us, but might not have been obvious 2,000 years ago as you're learning the concept of conversion to Judaism from these verses. Norm.
I think that's particularly true for somebody who might have interpreted the previous verse to be referring just to Pesach.
Yes.
And whether they can do it. So here he's saying this is in fact a general rule. They're equal in regard to all things.
Yeah. Good. All right. Let me steal 2 extra minutes. By the way, Paul, where are you right now? Are you in like Mississippi, Arkansas?
I am west of New Orleans and still in Louisiana heading towards Texas.
And what was the name of that train line? The something Sunset? The Eternal Sunset?
The Sunset Limited.
The Sunset Limited. I looked it up. They told me it's a 48-hour Amtrak from New Orleans to Los Angeles. I think we should all do that one day. Okay. I hope your travels go safely.
Thank you.
The last verse of the chapter, we've been dealing with this chapter a long time. Let's just read it. There's no Rashi on it. Next week we'll look at a different commentary because that's our usual practice.
There's two.
Yeah, we had two more.
Oh, right, 51. Okay, so, but let's still read verse 50. Tov, you want to read verse 50? I forgot that's 50, not 51 verses.
Placed here.
Rashi's quiet on both of them, yeah. Vayasu.
Yes. ויעשו כל בני ישראל כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה ואת אהרון כן עשו. And thus did all so did all of the children of Israel, for the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron to do this.
Right.
So they did.
It's sort of like a doubly redundant verse, right? It's doubly redundant because, as we've discussed already, there's some aspect of these last few verses that suggest that all of this had already happened, that they're already out. So first of all, it's interesting that the coda in the second to last verse of the chapter, which, by the way, is the last verse of the parsha in the scroll, because you see how there's a bit, depending on which chumash you have, there's a big samech after this verse, meaning if you're looking at the scroll, there's a break here, right? That we're being told that the Israelites did as God had commanded Moses and Aaron. And then the last two words, yes, they did. So we may not have needed the first, yes, they did, and we certainly didn't need the second, yes, they did. So we'll figure out what may be going in that verse next time.
It's triply redundant because we just had it 2 verses ago.
Right. It's quadruply redundant because I just said that. Oh, Larry?
There are 2 questions that scream at me from this.
Okay.
One is the answer to why we have the redundancy at the end is because maybe the redundancy at the end has to do with Aaron and Moshe.
The Kenasu is them.
Yes, Aaron and Moshe, they did it. But what did they do? Since we've already had this before about the Korban Pesach, I'm going to interpret this to mean what they did is they treated the ger as they should.
Nice.
It has nothing to do with the Korban Pesach. It has to do with the way in which we treat.
They did exactly as they were told to do in that regard. Yes. All right. We'll end here. Paul, travel safely. See you all next week. And I'll give you an answer as to whether or not any of the other clergy are going to stand in for this on Wednesday morning. It totally slipped my mind that that's what we did with Rabbi Lucas a decade ago.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.